talk to you about different nutrition topics. I'm here today because it's World Food Day. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
October 16th, every year, October 16th is called World Food Day. Okay? The reason that we have World Food Day is it gives us an opportunity to think about how other people in the world are dealing with the issue of hunger. Okay? Now, certainly, people in Canada, for the most part, we're fortunate, aren't we? That we have the food we want, we have safe food, we have clean food, and we have enough food and water. But a lot of people don't have those luxuries. Right? In fact, a large portion of the world's population are hungry. I've got some figures here that will help to show you just how much of a problem world hunger is. In the world today, 1 person out of 10 is suffering from hunger. Right? When we're hungry, we go and get something to eat. 1 person out of 10 doesn't have anything to eat when they're hungry. 1 out of every 4 children is malnourished. 1 out of 4. It's quite a bit, isn't it?
Where's this at?
This is in the world. This is all over. Each year, 11 million babies die before their first birthday.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And this isn't happening in Canada to any great extent, but it's happening in other countries, poorer countries of the world. Now, what you might be wondering is whether or not there's enough food. Do you think there's enough food in the world to feed everybody that's here? Do you think so?
Sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The world produces enough food to feed every one of us. So why then are people going hungry?
That's the question.
That's the big question, isn't it?
They're too lazy.
According to our Common Future report, the world produces more food per head of population today than ever before in human history. So we're growing more food now than we ever have before. There's enough food for all people. The problem lies more with economics and politics than with actual food growing and farming. Right? So it's the politics of selling the food, it's the politics of making sure that the food stays in the country rather than all of it being exported out to feed the rest of the world. People go hungry everywhere in the world, including North America, for the same basic reason. They don't have the resources to either buy or grow food. Okay? So it is a big problem. Right? Now, World Food Day was started about 10 or 12 years ago to help to increase awareness of the issues of world hunger. Now, what can you do about world hunger? It's nothing, or rather world hunger is not something that we should accept, but rather we should be working towards fighting and solving the problem of world hunger. And what can you do? You can educate yourself about global issues, world food issues, those sorts of things. Right? That's what I'm doing here today, is we're going to talk a little bit about that. Ask the right questions about hunger to help to initiate discussion when you're with different groups of people. When you're sitting down at Thanksgiving dinner, in your prayer or your blessing before dinner, give a prayer or a blessing to the people who are less fortunate. And that won't help their problems, but at least you're taking the time to consider that other people aren't as fortunate as you are. Find organizations that work in your area and try and get involved with them to help resolve the issues of world hunger. And there are lots of organizations around Nelson that are working to promote equal food distribution and helping to solve the problems of world hunger. So lots can be done. All right, today we're fortunate to have a wonderful lunch to look forward to. Right in the kitchen, I'm sure they're preparing something delicious for us. But it's important, as I said, to take the time to consider the people who are less fortunate. Now, I'd asked Pat in the kitchen earlier to help come up with some international snack ideas. And that's what you tried, isn't it? Did you enjoy the things that you tried? They were different, weren't they? Different sorts of cheese, right? You don't usually have camembert, perhaps, or Swiss cheese. So we had some different ones for you to try. There was something called hummus, Some of you had tried it before, but it was new to some of you. Okay, that's a chickpea spread that is very high in protein, and it's easy to make, so you can try that at home. You can buy it instant. We had Scottish scones and jam, which is a tradition in places such as Scotland and the British Isles. We had some unusual fruits. You may not have tried papaya before, but we had it there for you. There was fresh pineapple. Yeah. So lots of different things. So if ever you feel you're in a rut when it comes to the foods you're eating, just take a look around, and there's lots of other alternatives for you to try. It can sure make eating a lot more interesting, doesn't it? Now, people from around the world eat a variety of different foods, don't they? We don't all eat the same thing. Why do you think we eat different foods? Why do we eat differently here than people do in Spain or Mexico or India?
Because of the climate?
Yeah, certainly because of the climate. That's going to affect what foods grow. Right? That's going to affect what sort of livestock animals can be produced. Right? Can you think of any other reasons why we eat different types of foods? Certainly there's cultural differences, and those go way back, don't they? Certain cultures have introduced different foods, perhaps with religious meanings. So that's how food evolves and has many different meanings in different societies. Now I want to spend a few minutes today talking about some different ethnic foods. Okay? I think ethnic foods are very interesting, and Canada is such a new country that many of us can remember first coming to Canada from a different country, right? And bringing with us our food traditions. So what I'm going to do is talk to you a little bit about Russian tradition, because there's a lot of Russian people in this area. We're going to talk a little bit about Scottish food traditions and Chinese. Chinese is very interesting. Before we get into that, though, I'm going to share a cartoon with you. I'll leave this cartoon posted up on the nutrition board. This is a cartoon by BC, and it says, Susie, can you name the 4 major food groups? Sure. Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger King, and Pizza Hut. That's what Susie figures are the 4 food groups. And BC takes a big sigh. But we know better, don't we? Okay, let's talk a little bit about Chinese food. Now, when I say Chinese food, what do you think of?
I don't like it.
You don't like it? All right. We won't talk about it for that long.
But I don't like it. It doesn't look nice, that's all.
It doesn't look nice. Why is that? Because it looks different? It looks. Some people think it looks nice, some think it doesn't. But what sort of foods? What are some examples of Chinese food? Rice.
Vegetable.
Lots of vegetables.
Yeah, other vegetables.
Right, right. How are the vegetables cooked?
Sweet and sour.
Sweet and sour sauce, yeah. And the vegetables are stir-fried. Yeah, they cooked very quickly. All right. Did you know that about 1/4 of the world's population is Chinese? And they're considered to be one of the oldest civilizations, more than 4,000 years old. All right? Believe it or not, tea is believed to have originated in China. Okay? Way back when, in the 1400s, the Portuguese were the first people to go to China from Europe, and they brought back with them fruits such as peaches and oranges, spices, and tea. And it was at that time, in the 1400s, that Europe got their first taste of tea, and tea is very popular now, isn't it? In Europe and England and all those places, right? Chinese kitchens have always been the center of practicality of the house, and it's not uncommon for one kitchen to serve several families, even up to this day. Basic tools in the Chinese kitchen are, of course, the wok, right? Or a large skillet, steamers to steam vegetables, a cleaver and a cleaving block, and various other utensils. Now, Chinese cooking is typically done very quickly, stir-frying, things like that, and that originated out of a need to conserve fuel. Okay? A long time ago, there was very little in the way of fuel to heat stoves or cooking fires. Right? Wood was very scarce. So they had to develop a cooking method that would cook their food very quickly. So what they did was they realized that cutting the food into very small pieces, cooking quickly over high heat, would help them to conserve their fuel. So that's how stir-frying came about. Kind of interesting, isn't it? And in fact, the wok is a very versatile tool for cooking because you can stir-fry in it, you deep fry in it, you can boil, make soups, steam. You can do just about anything in a wok. Long ago, the Chinese developed methods of food preservation that are still unpassed or unsurpassed to this day. They did a lot of food drying, right? Food pickling, salting, those sorts of things. Have you ever been into a Chinatown before to look for different ingredients? You see lots of unusual things, don't you? Lots of things you're not quite sure what they are.
No, that's the trouble. I don't like it.
You don't like it, all right. But the reasons that a lot of those foods look unfamiliar is that they've been preserved, either dried or salted or whatever, any variety of different preservation methods. Right? The Chinese diet is made up about 98% plant foods, so vegetables, grains, those sorts of things. 2% of meat, so they're not big meat eaters, not compared with North Americans who tend to eat a lot of meat. Right? Rice is the staple food in the south of China. And when I asked you about Chinese cooking, somebody said rice. When they think of Chinese food, they think of rice. And that's the staple in the south of China. Did you know that each grain of rice is considered sacred, as it represents hard work, a lot of toil, and the lean times that Chinese people have been faced with in the past? Way back with thousands of years of history. It's bad luck if you knock over a rice bowl. If a rice bowl was on your table, it's considered bad luck if you accidentally knock over the bowl. If you deliberately upset that rice bowl, it's considered one of the worst insults because rice is so sacred. That's interesting, isn't it? Okay. Now, wheat is the staple in the north of China. Okay, so wheat is made into noodles, pastries, those sorts of things, and that's more common in northern China. The Chinese people don't drink milk. Did you know that? That they don't drink milk. Some of them may drink a little bit, but for the most part, their milk intake is very, very low. So what nutrient might they be at risk for if they're not drinking milk? Calcium. Yeah, who said that? Right, yeah, calcium is the nutrient, one of the main nutrients that we get in milk. So you wonder then, how are the Chinese people going to get calcium? Well, what they do is they use a lot of broths, homemade soup broth. They use bones to make those broths, and they add vinegar to the broth to leach the calcium out of the bones. Okay? So in fact, they're not low on calcium. All right? That's a good idea for you to try as well when you're making a soup stock. Just a teaspoon or so of vinegar is enough to help get some of the calcium out of the bones. Now, fish use is increasing in China. More and more fish is being used. If you have a guest of honor at your house for dinner, and if you're Chinese and you're serving fish, it's customary to place the head of the fish towards the guest of honor. Right? So you serve the whole fish, and the head of the fish points towards the guest of honor, and that's considered a very polite way to treat your guests. Now, believe it or not, soybeans are called Chinese cow because they're so versatile in the Chinese diet. Soybeans are used dried or they're sprouted as bean sprouts, which is a vegetable we often use in Chinese cooking. Soybeans are fermented into soy sauce. Okay. They're also made into the firm white curd that we call tofu. Tofu comes from soybeans. They drink soybean milk, which is a mixture of mashed soybeans, and they use soybean starch for thickening. Okay. So when it's called the Chinese cow, they're really not too far off because they're using soybeans for so many versatile uses. Right, so that's a little bit of interesting information then about Chinese cooking. Did you learn anything that you hadn't heard of before?
But vinegar is a good idea, but
Yeah, vinegar's a good idea. Right. Now let's move on and talk about Russian foods. Who here is of Russian descent? Anybody here Russian? Anybody Russian? Nobody in this room today. All right, there's certainly lots of people with Doukhobor heritage in this area.
They're just coming in now.
Oh, good. All right. Now, talk a little bit about Russian food. The passion with which the Russian describes, cooks, and serves his food may have its roots in the many long, painful periods of suffering that they've endured over their history. Russian food is a mixture of lots of different ethnic dishes, okay? But soul food, or the main staple foods, are considered to be cabbage, beets, which is of course made into borscht, black bread and kasha, and of course, what would they wash it down with? Vodka. Right. Home preserves are very popular. Fruits, jam, pickles, those sorts of things are very popular. And in this area, certainly Russian people do a lot of home preserving. They grow wonderful gardens. That's a tradition that they've brought with them from their homeland. They grow wonderful gardens, and they do a lot of preserving, a lot of home canning, that sort of thing, to preserve those gardens. Because when you think about it, the sort of climate that they came from was a very harsh climate. When you think of Russian climates, we usually think of lots of snow, don't we? Cold temperatures, long winters, just a short growing season, right? So then that's where the traditions of preserving foods came from. Sour cream is indispensable. It's a staple in a lot of foods, as is sour milk, regular cream, cheese, and cottage cheese. Those are all used in abundance. That's what gives Russian food its richness. When you think of borscht and you ask a Russian person how they make borscht, they use lots of butter, right? Don't they? To first saute their vegetables, and then when they're making the borscht, they use cream. Lots of cream, those sorts of things. Those are all traditional Russian food choices. Fruits and vegetables are available, of course, when they're in season, when they're being grown, they're mostly available. The most popular Russian fruits and vegetables are going to be the ones that can withstand the harsh climate. That's why cabbage, beets, those sorts of things are so popular. Heavy, dark, whole grain, dry breads. Lots of different types and shapes of breads and rolls are very popular and very abundant in Russia. Bread and salt are traditional symbols of welcome in a Russian household. Butter is very popular. Food flavors are not overly spiced, so they rely on the natural flavors of foods. Butter is very popular, however. It's used before, during, and after cooking. Rich sweets are also enjoyed, whenever possible, with weak tea. Can you give me some examples of Russian food? When you think of Russian food, what do you think of? You've already said borscht.
Pie.
What's that?
Pie.
Pie? What kind of pie? Almost any kind, right? What about cabbage rolls?
Yes.
Yeah. That's right. And they make lots of different things, certainly. We don't have any Russian people here today. Oh, we do. What are some other examples then of Russian food?
One more coming.
One more coming. Can you give us some examples of Russian foods? Some traditional foods?
So you're talking about Russian. What did you do in the Russian? Just busy.
Oh. Do you make any traditional foods at home?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
We make what our parents were.
They're famous for dried fruits too, aren't they?
I'm not sure. Do you use dried fruits or do you dry fruits?
Years ago they used to.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of fruits and things would have to be preserved back in the old country because of the long, cold winters, right? to do a lot of fruit and vegetable preservation. Okay, let's move on here. The last country I wanted to cover was Scotland. Do we have any Scottish people here? Yeah, good. And how about myself too? All right. I was just tiny though when we left, so I can't say that I'm a real Scottish person. Scotland is a small, rocky country with a cool climate and proud, vigorous people. It's best known for shortbread, marmalade, and of course Scotch whiskey. The Scottish kitchen is both simple and practical. Many items are handed down over generations from mothers to daughters, that sort of thing. Common foods include things such as hearty soups, fish dishes, and a variety of quick breads and loaves. Milk and other milk products are used in abundance. Fruits in season are popular, but mainly fruit is made into preserves and marmalade. Would you say that Scottish people have a sweet tooth? Yeah? Yeah? Yeah, okay. I'd say they have a sweet tooth. Popular vegetables include kale, seaweed, cabbage, potatoes, because those are all nibs. And nibs, those are turnips. Turnips.
Oh,
Nibs.
I've been up in Scotland, so I love
Nibs. Nibs. Okay. Oatmeal is used in many foods, more than just breakfast. When we think of oatmeal, we think of breakfast food, don't we? It's used in more than just breakfast. It's used in beverages, soups, meat, fish, puddings, stuffings, and dumplings.
Fruit dumplings.
Fruit dumplings.
haggis.
And haggis, that's it. Many Scots believe that the best meals are their breakfast and their late afternoon tea. Right?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock tea, that's it. Breakfast is a hearty meal of oatmeal, porridge, plus toast and preserves and tea. Yeah. And lunch is usually a hearty soup, perhaps with a hot dessert and tea. Afternoon tea is around 5:30, 6 o'clock. Traditionally a time for strong tea, baked goods, preserves, tea and scones, that sort of thing. Crumpets. Yeah. We had some scones for you to try, some Scottish scones. And after their late tea, they haven't got much room left over for supper. So supper is usually a lighter meal.
It's got tea, but the toast and stuff.
Yeah, a bit of tea and toast perhaps, or some eggs, or
Something kind of light.
Now, January 25th, we celebrate that night every year. What is January 25th? Robbie Burns night. That's right. We celebrate the birth of the great poet Robbie Burns. There's the ceremonial serving of the haggis with the pipes. And they did that last year. Are they planning to do it again? They did it here last January.
In Calgary too.
Mm-hmm.
Woodward, they had the Scotty town pulled together, and he carried it up in Burns Club, and the one at the back or in front is carrying the haggis.
Right. Well, I was here at Broader Horizons last January when they piped in the haggis, and that was wonderful. Good, I'm sure
that speech, you know.
I'm sure they'll do it again.
Yeah.
All right. Now here's an opportunity for people in the audience to share any traditional foods of their home with other people. What are some countries that people are from here in the audience? We've got some Scottish people. We've got some Scottish people. We have some Russian people. Where else? Where are you? Italian. Right. Great. What about you? English. Okay. Who else do we have here? Irish. Yeah. That's quite. Buckermore. Yeah. We've got quite the mix here. Anywhere different? Canada. We all came from somewhere. For the native people. All right. What I've got planned now is a little bit of a word game. Okay? This is just a fun sort of a game. I'm going to give you a question, and then you have to answer with the type of food, okay, that I'm describing. And these are all foods related to a certain country. Okay? For example, what is poached eggs and ham with hollandaise sauce on an English muffin? What do you call that?
Breakfast.
Eggs Benedict,
Oh, yes.
right? Okay. Now, the next one, a small thin dessert pancake rolled up and served with a flaming orange sauce. I'm sure we all had some last night. What would we call that?
Crepes.
Crepes?
Crepe.
Crepe? What kind of crepe? It's got a special name, French name, crepe Suzette.
Suzette.
That's it. Okay. Scallops in the shell in a sauce is called, this is a tricky one. This is a French one, French dish. It's called coquille Saint-Jacques. Coquille Saint-Jacques. I'm not very good at pronouncing that. This is an easy one. A crescent-shaped French butter roll. Croissant, that's it. Sautéed beef and onions, Japanese style. Sukiyaki.
Oh, that's it.
You gotta get your thinking caps on here. We've got foods from all over the world. This is a tricky one. Potato leek soup. The French name for potato leek soup.
It's swishy. Swishy swish.
Close. Vichyssoise. She was close, that's right. Now, curry dishes, right? Indian curry can often be accompanied with what? Usually when they serve a hot curry, they serve some cool things along with it. Coconut. Yeah. What else? What about yogurt? That's a popular one. Cold yogurt along with that. Or even salad. Okay, or rice. Rice helps to cool you down too.
Yeah.
If you ate borscht and pierogies, what countries might you be in? Russia? There's two other ones that you might find borscht and pierogies. Ukraine and Hungary. Right? You might find them there as well. Ice cream on cake and baked with meringue is called
Alaska.
baked Alaska. That's it. Pie crust, eggs, bacon, sautéed onions in a custard base is what?
Quiche.
Quiche. That's it. These aren't too hard. Some of them are tricky. Dry cake, fruit, custard, sherry, and whipped cream make English trifle. That's right. That's very good too, isn't it? Roast beef isn't complete without meat.
Butter pudding.
That's it. Oatmeal, organ meats, boiled in lamb stomach.
Haggis.
That makes the haggis. It doesn't sound very good when we talk about what's in it, does it? Apple, walnuts, lettuce, raisins, and dressing make this sort of salad.
That Waldorf.
Waldorf salad, right. What's the Swiss national dish? Swiss national dish. You usually sit around a table with a pot in the middle, dunk into the pot. What's that called? You can do cheese, fondue. That's it. Fondue.